Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Harry Lausenis, and this is my YouTube channel, grecochess. We're continuing the series of presenting games that were suggested to be my Facebook friends. And in this video, we are going to present a game that was suggested by Δημήτριος Γαλανός, my compatriot Greek Facebook friend, where he faced Soumya Swaminathan, an international master from India. The game took place in the year 2012 in Greece, in the province of Κορινθία, part of the Isthmia Games. This place is very near the isthmus separating Peloponnese from the rest of Greece. And when they played, Soumya had a rating of 2271 versus 2044 of Dimitris, meaning she was ahead. Her rating was higher by 227 points. And now, 9 years later, the difference is still 227 points. Both of them have lost just 15 points. Soumya is 2256 and Dimitris 2029. And we're going to the chessboard of chess.com to show you what exactly happened. How did the game go through? And here we are. This game has been saved in one of the URL pages of chess.com, and that's why we're going to take it from there. We're not going to enter the moves one by one. But in order not to spoil the surprise and keep the suspense, we are only going to show the relevant part of the screen of the chessboard, because the remaining of the screen, you can see how the game evolved and what were the next moves. On the left, you're going to see the computer evaluation. Currently, it is the beginning 0.0, meaning computer thinks players are on an equal basis. If white is ahead, you'll see a number on the bottom left. If black is ahead, or at least the computer thinks black is ahead, you'll see a number here on the top left. After every move, you are going to see a green arrow indicating which move the computer thinks would have been the best. And we start the game. Soumya has the white pieces and Dimitris has the black. And Soumya starts by placing her pawn on e4, the most popular move to begin with for white. And Dimitris also replies with the most popular move, the Sicilian defense. Pawn goes to c5. Next move for Soumya, knight to f3 and Dimitris pawn to d6. Third move, pawn goes to d4, and they're going to exchange pawns on d4, the two players. And knight f6 for Dimitris to attack the pawn on e4, which Soumya will defend with her knight going to c3, and pawn to e6 for Dimitris. We completed the first 5 moves. All of them are book moves. Soumya has a small advantage of 0.6 just because white starts first. But let's see how game will continue. Bishop to e3 for Soumya overprotects the knight on d4. Pawn to e6 for Dimitris, and you may be wondering why play a pawn, why just move a pawn by 1 square on the edge of the board. And the reason is because you don't want any of the white knights to end up on b5 and exerting pressure on the d6 pawn. Pawn to f3 for Soumya overprotects the e4 pawn, and pawn to b5 for Dimitris. He starts an attack on the queen side. Queen to d2 for Soumya, also protecting the bishop on e3. Knight to d7 for Dimitris. Clearly he cannot place his knight on c6 because it will be taken by the knight on d4, but by doing so he's blocking the bishop on c8. And once Dimitris started attacking on the queen side, Soumya will start pushing on the king side. Pawn goes to g4. Dimitris tries to stop the pawn from going to g5 by pushing his pawn to h6. Queenside castling for Soumya. And bishop to b7 is fianchetto for Dimitri. Since he cannot go on the diagonal from c8 to h3, he's going to push it on the long diagonal from h1 to a8. We completed the first 10 moves. All of them are book moves. Soumya still has a small advantage of 0.7. So long as the players follow book moves, it doesn't matter who has advantage, because if it is book moves, it means that they are okay moves. They have been analyzed, part of the opening theory, and they should be okay moves. And let's continue now with the next move. And Soumya continues her kingside attack. Pawn goes to h4. Pawn to b4 for Dimitris that attacks the knight on c3. Where will the knight go? How many squares does it have? It can go safely to a4, b1, or d2. 3 choices. And Soumya will choose the best one to a4. And this is the last book move. It's move number 12 for white. So for the first 12 moves, white, and for the first 11 moves, black, have followed the opening theory, book moves. But from now on, their players are on their own. And Dimitris is going to deviate from opening theory by pushing the pawn to d5. Mistakes as a computer would rather have the queen go to a5. That is why Soumya has an advantage of 1.3. The computer comment says this allows the opponent to eventually win material. Now let's see how eventually, because it is not very obvious. Bishop to h3 for Soumya. Computer says a great move. Now black can't stop white from winning material if they make the right moves, says the computer. And unfortunately, I can tell you I cannot see the right moves that could help white win. Perhaps if pawn goes to g5 and after the exchanges, bishop goes to h6, taken, then knight goes to h6, perhaps. This is a strong attack, but I don't see how what material can be won. But let's see how game continues. Pawn to e4 for Dimitris. He wants to open the long diagonal from h1 to a8 because it's controlled by his bishop on b7. So a pawn exchange is definitely going to help him. But Soumya is not going to agree with that. Instead of taking back the pawn on e4, she pushes her pawn on g5 and attacks the knight on f6. And it's a very tricky situation because if Dimitris allows it, if Dimitris doesn't move his knight, he could take the pawn on f3 and he's a very dangerous attack with a lot of threats, but he's going to lose his knight. Is it worthwhile? Let's see how game continues. Both players postpone the decision by one move by taking on g5, but Dimitris is still facing the same dilemma. Will he defend his knight, and where can it go? It can go all the way back to g6, or maybe to h5, or if it goes to d5, it blocks the bishop on b7. Let's see what will he decide to do. He decides instead to take the pawn on f3 and sacrifice his knight. And computer says this is the best move. You see the green arrow, it agrees with his move. The computer comment says this makes a passed pawn. And at this point, we completed the first 15 moves, and the Soumya is ahead by 1.3. And let's see how will it continue. Will she try to stop the pawn on f3? Will she take the knight on f6? That is very, very tempting to need to say, but if she takes it, then the pawn goes to f2, and we have both a pawn near promotion and the rook on h1 under threat. Soumya decides to take the knight. Computer doesn't like this move. Computer would rather have the knight on d4, take the pawn on e6. And computer says about this grab of the knight, this permits the opponent to win material by eventually trapping a piece. Clearly, white won the knight. It's wonderful to win an extra piece, but black has dangerous threats. How will black react? Dimitris takes the pawn on f6. The best moves is the computer. Now black can win material by trapping a piece with the right continuation. They don't tell you which is the right continuation, so we have to guess what can happen, but still you see Soumya is ahead, even though by much less. Bishop to g2 for Soumya. You may think that computer says this misses a much better move, queen going to e1 as you see the arrow. You may think that white foolishly let their bishop on g2 to be trapped, but that's not the case, because if black takes the bishop on g2, then white takes a rook on h8, and they're ahead by an exchange. And Dimitris realizes it. Instead of just blindly taking the bishop, he exchanges the rooks. And Dimitris will place now his queen on a5. Great move, says the computer. In fact, this is the only good move. And it says that moving the queen gives black more flexibility in the middle game. Black, in fact, was threatening to push his pawn on b3 that would... Currently, they would lose the queen, but they would be very near promotion. The b3 would then go to a2 and then promote. Let's see, what it promotes? And with a check and perhaps a mate, let's see what would happen. A thought experiment. If black pawn went to b3, we exchange queens, pawn goes to a2, then the knight can go to b3. Otherwise, it is really mate. Otherwise, pawn to a1 is mate. So no, it is not so sure that the pawn could, that black could sacrifice a queen and push the pawn to a1 to checkmate. Let's continue the game. In any case, this did not happen. We said pawn goes to b3. Computer says a great move because it threatens to capture a pawn and win material after the follow-up trades. Rook to d8 for Dimitris and pins the knight on d4. And the black does not like the pin, and because it's a matter of time until we have other pieces. For example, the pawn can easily go later to e5 and the knight is lost. That is why Soumya is trying to end this pin by moving her queen on e1. And yes, this ends the pin, but the computer would rather have the queen go to h2. Computer says that with this move that Soumya played, this allows the opponent to move a queen to a more active position. And at this point, finally, black Dimitris is ahead, as you see, by 1.1. And Dimitris will place his queen on e5. Great moves in the computer, and we completed the first 20 moves. And now black Dimήτris Galanos is ahead by 1.1. Let's see what is happening. The knight on d4 is in a not so nice position. It's attacked twice. Rook d8, queen e5. Defended twice, bishop e3, rook d1. If black can put one more piece to pressure on d4, the knight could be theirs, but let's see how the game will continue. But there are other threats in addition. You see the pawn on f3 is very dangerous. And let's see how Soumya will continue the game. Knight goes to b2, mistakes as a computer. Would rather have the bishop go to f2, it blocks the f3 pawn, and we have exchanges of queens. Perhaps at least there is an offer of exchanges. Knight goes to g4. And now, look at the bishop on e3. Attacked twice by knight g4, queen e5, defended only once, queen on e1. So Soumya must do something for her bishop. What will she do? Knight to c4 and attack the black queen. And Dimitris has to be very careful. He cannot just use his knight on g4 to take e3, loses the queen. He cannot just use the queen on e5 to take on e3, again loses the queen with the knight on c4. Let's see how he's going to react. Yes, he relocates the queen on a safe square on f6, but from there, the queen does not attack the bishop any longer. Queen to g1 for Soumya, attacking the knight on g4, but the computer doesn't like it at all, inaccuracy, and gives an enormous advantage of 4.3 for Dimitris. The queen on g1 attacks the knight on g4, as we mentioned. The computer says this loses material. Let's see how it's going to be lost. Knight goes to e3. Dimitris won a bishop, but his knight can be taken from the knight on c4 and the queen of g1. Let's see how game continues, because things are not so obvious and they need enormous calculations. Queen will take it back on e3, so material is equal for now. Bishop to c5 for Dimitris, and now the knight on d4 is pinned. You see that agrees with the green arrow, the computer suggestion, and the comment is that that pin will win material. Let's see why. The knight on d4 is attacked 3 times: bishop c5, rook d8, queen f6, and is defended twice by rook d1 and queen e3. If the knight is moved anywhere, queen is lost. What can Soumya do? Knight to e5. Excellent move, but not the best. The computer would rather have the bishop for an h1, takes the pawn on f3. And rook takes on d4, and now Dimitris won an extra piece. We completed the first 25 moves, and Dimitris has an enormous advantage of 4.9. From this kind of advantage, it's very difficult to lose, even though queens are on the board, which means that there is a small possibility that player ahead may lose the queen, may blunder the queen. But let's see, Dimitris, in addition to having an extra piece, he has the pawn on f3 that is very dangerous, is near promotion. But let's see how the game is going to continue. Of course, with the queen going back to f6, the knight is not easy to be kept as an extra piece, because it was attacked twice and defended twice. So Soumya is going to take back the rook. If anything, she's ahead by an exchange. Dimitris can easily take the exchange back if he takes the rook on d4, but let's see what is he planning to do. Instead of just taking back the exchange that he lost, he's pushing the pawn on f2, and the pawn is very near promotion. That is even more dangerous than one piece here or there, or an exchange. Look at that. How can the pawn be stopped? If black could play again, pawn goes to f1. How can it be stopped? If queen on e3 takes the pawn on f2, then queen f6 wins the queen on f2. If the rook goes down to d1, then bishop on c5 takes the queen on e3. If bishop goes to g2, for example, then that doesn't help. The black bishop from b7 will take g2 and then will promote. The knight cannot stop it. So that is why black has an enormous advantage. What is white? What will Soumya try to do? She'll try to minimize loss. Well, at least since he cannot stop the promotion, she took the bishop on b7. Her best move is a computer. And if your best move is one that allows your opponent to promote a pawn, that's not good news. But before we see this move, let's see that after the first 25 moves, Dimitris has a huge advantage, enormous advantage of 4.9. The game is his to lose. Continue 26 move. Players played the obvious move. Soumya trying to minimize damage. Okay, so it'll be a queen behind, but let's at least take the bishop that offered now for free. And Dimitris promotes his queen, pawn to f1 is promoted to a queen with a check, and Dimitris has 2 queens now. King to b2 for Soumya. At least we are already down in material, but let's at least safeguard the king. Bishop to d4 for Dimitris is going to win an extra exchange. Computer doesn't like it in accuracy because had the queen gone to d1, from f1 to d1, got the green arrow, then Dimitris would win an entire rook, not just exchange. That is why his advantage is going to fall from 4.9 to 2.8. Queen takes back the bishop. And Dimitris places his queen on e7. And the computer says it is a great move. It defends, among others, the pawn on b4. Check for Soumya, bishop to c6, king to f8 for Dimitris. And we completed the first 30 moves. And Dimitris has an advantage from 4.9, went down to 2 point something, and now it's 3.7. Still, he's the favorite to win. Let's see if he can complete the game successfully. Next move, one more check. These are the so-called spite checks. The side that is losing wants to postpone the inevitable by checking. Knight to d7. King to g8. Clearly, you don't want the king to f8 and have a discovered check from white. That's why the computer says a great move, the only move that works, but it is, I would say, too obvious. What was the choice of black? King goes either e8 or g8. Also, queen can take the knight, and then the queen is lost. This clearly Dimitris will never do. King to e8 means that the knight can go anywhere. In fact, if it goes to f6, we have a double check. You don't want unnecessarily to enter this kind of adventure. Still, perhaps black might win, but why take the chance? And now, queen to e5 for Soumya. Perhaps he's hoping if queen goes to b8 with a check, what else can she hope for? Will this have any effect? Then bishop goes to, king goes to h7, then queen goes to e4 check. King has to go to h6, and still I think black would be winning, but Dimitris doesn't want even to give Soumya even this hope. That's why queen goes to d8. Computer thinks it's an excellent, not necessarily the best. The best would have been queen to h3. At this point, both players have completed 32 moves. Black, Δημήτρης Γαλανός, has an advantage of 3.3, and white, Soumya Swaminathan, resigned. Congratulations to Dimitris, that beat a much stronger player than him. Great win. But then let's see, what does the computerchess.com, which by the way is stock fee 16, think about this game. We are going to change the screen. And we're going to see the screen with the entire analysis. And here we are. You see that Soumya had an accuracy of 88%, Dimitris had 94.5%, and they played as if their ratings was 2350 for Soumya, better than her actual rating, but Dimitris even better than that, 2650. With this kind of rating, if Dimitris could keep it on, he would have been a grandmaster and among the top players in the world. 2650 is great. And let's see now at the various categories, how did the players do? No brilliant moves, great moves, quite a lot from both of them. 7 for Dimitris, 3 for Soumya. Best moves 11 Dimitris, 10 Soumya. This means that out of the 32 moves, if you include the 11 book moves, I'm counting now, it's 11. For Dimitris, 29 out of the 30 moves were really his best. And we're not even counting the excellent moves. For Soumya, how many were her best? 3, 13, 25 out of these 32 were the best. These are percentages that I cannot even see in my dreams. Very rarely, if a game ends very fast because of an open trap, I might get this scores, but very rarely otherwise. Not in a game that goes for more than 30 moves. Excellent moves, 1 move each of them. 1 good move for Soumya. Book moves, we saw that the book moves were quite a lot of them. 12 for Soumya, 11 for Dimitris. And on the negatives, 1 inaccuracy for both of them. Mistakes, 3 for Soumya, 1 for Dimitris. And 1 miss for Soumya. And this concludes the coverage of this game. Let's give one more look to the tournaments, how they're going. grecochess, nothing has changed. We are still needing 10 games for the first round to complete. And let's go to the Moonlight tournament suggested by my subscriber. The Underwater Moonlight, the 9 Moons tournament by my subscriber Zaniror. We have completed already 137 games. In my group, group number 8, we participate. I'm here. No game has been completed. Let's see what's happening in the other groups. Group number 1, Elfering from the Netherlands is leading with 2 points. Group number 2, Zhenlei from China leading with 4 points. Group number 3, Silvio from Croatia, Silvio 8888 is leading with 3 points. Silvio is from Croatia. Number 4, no games completed. Number 5, we have Peon Perez from Palestine is leading with 8 points. But in this group, 2 players have withdrawn, while another one is being timed out in all the games. And that's why out of the 8 points, only 2 wins of Peon Perez are really wins where he defeated someone that really competed against. Group number 6. Munja 44 from Croatia and Marko 23 from Poland leading with 6 points. A similar story that 2 players have already withdrawn. Number 7, Gendalf 66 from Uzbekistan is leading with 5 points, and these are all of them are earned points. You see that there are no withdrawals and no timeouts. All Gendalf's F65 points are really earned on the chessboard. Group number 8, my group, no game completed. The group number 9, we have Hikaru Carlsen Tal from India leading with 4 points. We'll continue with one more of my Facebook friends. Have a few more to go. Thanks to all the viewers, subscribers, the likes, the positive comments. And if you have not subscribed, all you need to do is click the subscribe button. And this will give you a chance to be notified of the next videos. Thanks everybody for watching. This is Harry Lausaniziris, my grecochess YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.